Florida Senator Marco Rubio has been hailed as the right's example of an economic populist politician. But critics argue that his new student debt relief plan is the opposite of economic populism.
Rubio's plan would allow survivors of terrorist attacks to receive automatic deferments of their federal student loan payments. What? I don't see the connection there.
Marco Rubio gets today's Come On, Man award. Like, really, the only way we can get anyone in this country student debt relief is if they or a family member is a victim of a terrorist attack? It's ridiculous. What a dumb piece of legislation.
There's so many problems with this. The first of all being the definition of what counts as a terrorist attack will be already is a fraught political battle. I once testified before the House's Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Committee about hate crimes, the subject of my radar the other day. And one of the issues we were discussing is how what gets classified as terrorism is very confusing. Actually, there are a lot of racist assumptions built into that, because if a person who happens to be Islamic commits violence, well, then is it automatically terrorism? What if a white person does it's actually, and I don't really want to, by the way, label more things terrorism, because that lends itself to kind of Patriot Act, surveillance, that kind of stuff that as a libertarian I want to get away with, and I've been thankful to have many on the left really supporting us in that effort. So anyway, this seems like a bad idea.
It just seems ridiculous. I mean, look, it's a way to non-address a problem, but then put something on your website or put out a press release that you're actually addressing the problem. Everybody knows student debt is a problem in this country. The younger generations are struggling with paying the bills, especially coming out of the COVID pandemic, and how they're going to pay them in the future is a really difficult proposition, and goes back to the fact that college is too expensive at public and private universities, period. But when you have to be injured and or in a terrorist event to get any relief for that, I mean, look, I almost have no other words, but come on, man. And Marco, what kind of joke is this? Give people real student debt relief, not this joke that you have to be a victim of terrorism in order to qualify for, hold on a second, deferments.
Right. Okay?
Right. So I was somehow injured and or, received negative kind of, environmental whatever in my life because of a terrorist attack, and my payments are deferred while I'm in recovery? Okay, thanks, man. How gracious of you. Thank you. That really solves my problem here.
Yeah, it's nuts. I don't think Rubio is he's masquerading as an economic populist type person because that's what's popular now. I don't think there's he's not a very genuine politician. I think at his heart he's really a kind of old school Bush neoconservative type, which is why he's attaching this to terrorism, because that's the kind of issue that interests him as a political figure.
Speaking of a neocon Bush type figure, he was a state rep when George Bush's brother was the governor, and he followed that neocon line, and he hasn't fundamentally changed since he's become a senator. So the idea that he's this, Republican, stalwart of economic populism is an absolute joke. I mean, look, in order to get debt relief, you have to be injured in a terrorism event. I can't, it writes itself. Yeah. I almost don't even know what else to say.
I will say we probably disagree on this, that I'm not persuaded by the case for student debt forgiveness, at least. I think that would be a one-time massive transfer to people who got college degrees, who are better off than actually a lot of other people. Also, what do we do? What about everyone who just finished paying off their student loans? They just missed out because we decided to do it now. What about the future? I do agree that college tuition is just obscenely expensive. I actually think the practice of subsidizing student loans at the federal level has contributed to the runaway cost of higher ed, because if the colleges know that the federal government is going to cover the money no matter what, it is always going to be owed. It can't be gotten rid of in bankruptcy. That's the other thing. I would actually change the law so that you could declare bankruptcy and get rid of your student loans. I think you should be able to do that. But anyway, because the college knows they have every incentive to keep raising the price, because you're not paying it, someone's paying it for you, and then later you're paying it back and you don't really understand what you're paying. I think a lot of young people got screwed by this, got tripped up, they got bad advice, and it's really obscene. But I don't know that a one-time forgiveness model is the right way to do it.
It's not even bad advice, right? I mean, in many cases, it's fundamentally no other option. And to be quite frank, most of the student loans don't even cover the entire cost of public, universities, right? You can get a student loan plus your Pell Grant and still be $10,000 short. Now, how are you supposed to make that up and pay for your cost of living, right? Like, the idea that college is affordable is just asinine. line. It's not. It's really difficult for people to get an education nowadays, and it's why we're graduating as a percentage of the population less than many other countries, and we should aspire to be the first and leading in that, in my opinion. Now, I've got a difference of opinion on student loan debt, and I fundamentally think alleviating that debt, alleviating the monthly payments would actually be an economic boon to the country and create more opportunities for hiring so that people who are struggling with student loan debt, but right now maybe aren't, as we come out of the pandemic, aren't finding the best economic opportunities, and so they're having difficulty paying those things, get rid of those debt. They'll have more money in their pocket. They'll be able to buy homes. They'll be able to rent and get move out if they're staying with family, which was what is very common for people once you get out of school. Like, it's going to put more money into the economy generally. And I think that's a good thing.
I think the biggest boom for hiring would be if we didn't incentivize, we didn't force, we didn't create this environment where everyone had to go to college in the first place before you could work. People are overeducated and underemployed. People are doing jobs. They're working at Starbucks. You don't need a college degree to work at Starbucks. Yeah. But Starbucks can pick people with college degrees because there's so many of them, because we have formal federal official policy to encourage everyone to get a college degree. The next thing it will be everybody needs to get a graduate degree. Mm-hmm. Then it'll be beyond that. We'll have people 35 before they're qualified to do work. Not because you actually need that learning or that skill to do that job, but because there's an oversupply of overeducated people, which is our explicit government policy. And I think that needs to change.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point, and I am with you on that. I don't think you need to, and I think the economics of things bear it out, that you don't necessarily need a college degree to be economically successful, right?
No.
It's certainly very helpful in many work environments, sure, without a doubt. But I would actually argue that we're all, in many instances, we're into an area and a place in this economy where you do actually have to have a graduate degree to be competitive. Maybe you can get hired, but if you want to be competitive to move up in that particular career in these particular companies, especially large ones, you've got to have an MBA or some form of graduate degree that directly applies to whatever it is you're working on. And then, that encourages, as we both know, and we've talked about, the acquisition of more debt by regular people, which is a bad thing. Having a highly educated society, I think, is a good thing, right? Like, the more we know about things, the better. Doesn't mean that we all have to go to college. There are certainly trade programs and trades and skills and even programming as a skill and or a trade is something you don't need to go to school for 4 years to be able to do those particular jobs. I do think that I count all of that trade school training as education. Yeah. And it should be low cost for anyone that wants to pursue being, having the skills to do whatever job it is that they particularly want to do. Yeah. And it shouldn't cost them or put them in debt for 30 years. I just finished paying mine off. I know it.
Yeah. And we shouldn't devalue that, and we shouldn't let colleges continue to market themselves, expensive colleges that put kids in this debt. We shouldn't allow them to keep portraying themselves as the end-all, be-all. You have to do this or you're useless to society, because they have every incentive to do that. And it's not true. We know it's not true. They're overselling themselves. And I would like that to stop. Anyway, thanks for joining us so much today. Great discussion, a lot of great segments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Tomorrow we highlight the greatest media screw-ups, and it'll be a lot of fun. We'll see you then.